Is a bit darker in nature. How was it getting in touch with your darker side?
It was just more like all the facades that I put up, I just had like let go, so you guys got to see the real me. I'm just a dark, horrible person, and I just got to let my flag fly. So there you go. This is the real me.
Hi friends, it's Katie Joy from Without a Crystal Ball. Today, there's finally some real pushback against Blake Lively and the claims she's made about content creators. Wayfair and attorney Kevin Fritz are now standing up and defending those who create online content, especially after Blake Lively made serious accusations involving subpoenas and what she says is a smear campaign supposedly being run by Melissa Nathan. In a new letter sent to the judge today, Kevin Fritz responded to Blake's request to force action, which she submitted last Friday in her motion. Blake says that content creators who were subpoenaed are now making her look like the bad guy. She claims she's receiving backlash and is blaming Melissa Nathan. Just because Melissa labeled one of her documents as a EO attorney's eyes only. Blake is basically trying to blame Melissa for people criticizing her online. This pattern seems familiar. Fritz strongly disagrees with her. In his response, he says that Blake's claims that Wayfair is leading a worldwide media smear campaign are completely unrealistic. She says the campaign is untraceable. But that doesn't make sense because she already knows exactly which articles and authors she's upset about. So calling it untraceable just doesn't hold up. Blake knows who she's targeting. She knows who she's subpoenaing. Fritz explains that her actions are simply a way to dodge responsibility for the backlash she's getting. She says that a group called TAG may have hidden its involvement in a supposed smear effort back in August. But even after months of investigation and getting thousands of pages of documents, she has no real proof. According to Fritz, all Wayfair did was protect its name after Blake's accusations became public. He also points out that TAG didn't even start working with Wayfair until August 2024. So the idea that they could have turned the public against her in just 2 weeks is far-fetched. The truth is, people online reacted naturally to what Blake was doing. Nobody pushed them to feel that way. Still, she wants to blame TAG without having any proof. Blake argues that some people have spoken publicly about her and the case, and she thinks TAG made them do it. But Fritz says that's not true. The people mentioned were just those TAG had talked too often just to provide official statements to the media, something both sides have done. This kind of contact isn't shady or illegal. It's part of how legal teams respond when the media asks for comments. She also complains that Melissa Nathan shared official statements with content creators like me when we asked for comments. But again, that's not part of any hidden campaign. That's just public communication in a legal case. TAG didn't try to ruin Blake's name or talk to creators until 2025. When we started reaching out for comments ourselves, Blake says content creators are now painting her as the villain and wrongly comparing her subpoenas to a smear campaign. But honestly, it's not TAG's fault. It's her own subpoena sent to places like Google, TikTok, YouTube, and Twitter that made the public react. If she didn't want this kind of response, she shouldn't have gone after us in the first place. Just asking someone for a comment isn't slander. Also, if the information Blake is worried about is marked for lawyers' eyes only, then the public couldn't have seen it anyway. So how could it possibly hurt her reputation? In short, Blake Lively is trying to blame others for the backlash she's facing. But there's no evidence of any smear campaigns to her own legal actions. Blake Lively's legal team has issued subpoenas to social media companies, asking for private details like phone numbers and financial records of certain content creators. This step has triggered serious public backlash. According to a report, if Blake was hoping people would support her in the ongoing sexual harassment case with Justin Baldone, that support seems to be fading fast, especially now that the public has learned she's trying to get personal data from Google about YouTubers who support Baldone out of all the names mentioned in her interrogatory responses. Both media professionals and online creators, only one person was actually targeted by the social media subpoenas. That appears to B. Andy from Popcorn Planet, although this hasn't been confirmed officially. What's more, Andy is also the only one named under an attorney's eyes only EEO designation, which makes his identity confidential in court records. The only known interaction between Andy and Blake's legal side is that he received a formal statement from them, nothing more. That's it. He didn't work with them, didn't plan any attacks, he just got a statement like any journalist might. Blake's team seems to be blaming Wayfair and Tag for the public turning against her. However, the documents marked AEO and the list of people involved in media conversations have nothing to do with the negative attention she's getting now. The backlash came because of her actions specifically. The subpoenas she sent out to social platforms, asking for sensitive information, rather than continuing a professional discussion to clarify or resolve the matter. Blake's lawyers went straight to court and filed a motion. That motion, however, lacks any solid legal basis. There's no clear justification for why she wants the information in the interrogatories to be public. Nor does she explain how it proves anything about a supposed smear campaign in reality. This entire motion seems designed to put the blame on Tag and the Wayfair parties for the criticism Blake has received. The fact is, content creators and journalists are upset because she targeted them with legal orders. She presents herself as a victim of unfair treatment, but it's her own decisions that caused this situation. Instead of taking responsibility, she tries to shift the blame to others. Tag had labeled certain names as confidential because those were internal contacts with journalists or creators, and exposing them could hurt their business. Kevin Fritz explained in a formal declaration that these names are considered trade secrets under court protection rules. He also said that before Blake's team filed their motion, they never objected to those confidentiality labels. In fact, they had a phone call about this issue, during which Kevin explained everything clearly. Blake's team didn't argue back or say they disagreed until now in the end. Tag and Wayfair agreed to remove the confidentiality designations. As long as Blake stops calling the alleged smear campaign untraceable, they're willing to cooperate. But they're also committed to proving that these smear claims are simply not true the day after Blake Lively filed her motion. She sent out subpoenas to Google, TikTok, and Twitter, now X, asking for detailed information, like phone numbers and financial records of certain accounts. These subpoenas revealed the identities of many individuals, but only a small number were actual content creators. The rest were reporters or people connected to well-known media outlets like the Daily Mail or New York Post. And surprisingly, only one of those creators was even mentioned in her earlier court responses. This shows that neither Tag, its founder, Melissa Nathan, nor any of the interrogatory responses had anything to do with the current backlash Blake is getting. In fact, most of the content creators now reacting to her actions weren't even named in the legal documents. So the idea that they're mad because they were involved in some kind of secret campaign is just false. Tag has made it clear. They're willing to remove the confidentiality labels from those documents, not because they did something wrong, but to help clarify that there was never a coordinated plan to ruin Blake's image. They want to prove that the criticism she's facing online is real and organic, not the result of some hidden effort. Kevin Fritz, who represents Tag, even said that the only reason some names were kept confidential was to protect Tag's business relationships and prevent harm to their work with journalists and creators. That's totally normal in media and legal work. Now let's talk about who actually got subpoenaed. From YouTube, some of the names include Blossom Talk, Boppin' YouTube, Anna Ope, Spill Sesh, Without a Crystal Ball, Me, Fane Key, and Popcorned Planet. Some of these accounts have tiny followings, and one isn't even monetized. There are even usernames listed that look like random bots or personal accounts, not influencers. On TikTok, the list gets even more unusual, with names like Lessie MG and a bunch of random usernames, some with barely any content or followers. And for Twitter, it's even stranger, just regular users who happen to post about Blake or the lawsuit. These people aren't creators or journalists. They're just social media users expressing opinions. Despite that, Blake is trying to connect all of these people to Wayfair and accuse them of being part of a grand smear campaign. She even filed a misleading court statement accusing Melissa, Nathan, of keeping a list of creators that she can't talk to because they're under legal restrictions. Then she went further and made false claims against Andy from Popcorn Planet, saying he illegally recorded a call with her law firms, something commenters pointed out was a recorded line. She's clearly trying to shift blame for her bad press onto everyone else. But this entire situation started because she subpoenaed innocent people and tried to tie them to a fake conspiracy. No one would have said anything if she hadn't done that. Now she's accusing creators of being part of a criminal smear campaign against someone claiming harassment. That's a serious accusation, and she has no proof, no specific videos, no quotes, no dates. When her attorney spoke with mine, she couldn't point to a single thing I said or did that showed I was part of this. She just claimed I was involved and demanded my private information. Blake says this is about stopping misinformation, but her actions show something else. She's using the court to go after critics and trying to silence anyone who speaks negatively about her. The idea that she's a victim of an untraceable media attack doesn't hold up. When she knows exactly which writers and articles she doesn't like, says less about justice and more about control. Blake Lively has spent months trying to prove there's a secret smear campaign against her. Even after receiving thousands of documents and sending out dozens of subpoenas, she still hasn't found any real evidence that Wayfair or its team did anything wrong. Her claims are based on the idea that TAG might have hidden its communications with the media, but even that's just a guess. It shows that despite all the resources she has nothing solid to support her accusations. Blake believes she can say whatever she wants about others, even accusing them of crimes, but if anyone responds or defends themselves, she sees it as an attack. That's not how it works. People have the right to speak up when they're wrongly blamed. Her legal strategy has become aggressive and controlling. It feels like she's using her power to silence smaller voices. Blake is a public figure, married to someone with massive wealth and major business success. Yet she seems deeply concerned about a few content creators with small platforms, some with barely any followers. It feels extreme and unnecessary. Someone with her resources is spending this much energy trying to silence people with hardly any influence. It says more about her insecurities than anything else. Being in the public eye means facing criticism. It's just part of the job. Not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Celebrities like Taylor Swift, Selena Gomez, or Kim Kardashian have all faced harsh criticism. But they haven't filed lawsuits against random internet users. Most public figures learn to ignore the noise and focus on their work. If you truly believe in your image and actions, then you don't need to go after every negative comment. Blake could have handled this differently. She could have taken accountability for how she treated people or responded kindly to those raising concerns. Instead, she chose to blame everyone else. She didn't apologize to Shasti or the domestic violence advocates who felt hurt by her actions. She didn't acknowledge the voices of survivors or organizations speaking out. Instead, she tried to make Wayfair and content creators responsible for her public backlash. Nobody wants harm to come to Blake. People simply want her to stop using the legal system to go after innocent people. Issuing subpoenas just because you can doesn't make it right. The fact that a federal judge in New York is allowing this to continue is troubling. She hasn't shown any proof of a smear campaign. Hasn't received an EEOC letter to support her lawsuit. And yet the case moves forward. Judges should be able to recognize when someone is misusing the court. At some point, they need to step in and protect the people being targeted unfairly. That's what makes Kevin Fritz and Wayfair's response so important. They've stood up not only for themselves, but for all content creators being dragged into this mess without reason. So thank you to Kevin Fritz and Melissa Nathan for defending creators and calling out this behavior. What do you think? Leave a comment. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe for more updates and share it with your friends. Thanks for watching, besties.